Let's see. It says we're live.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Okay.
Perfect.
So I just have to click it separately on Instagram. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. All right,
Good.
y'all. Sorry we're a little tardy to the party today. But
Afternoon.
listen, we still gonna get in and get out, all right? If you're here and you can hear us okay, drop me a one in the chat because we are thrilled to be here with y'all today.
Absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody.
All right, y'all. So if you are new to our Wednesday lives, welcome. This is our Wealthy and Worthy live session happening. So each Wednesday, we are getting together as a community of entrepreneurs and as dynamic women who are building lives, building careers, building businesses, building families, doing all the things. Okay. And initially, this Wednesday series started as kind of a warm up to our in person Wealthy and Worthy live event that we were actually hosting this coming week in Atlanta. Which we have had to postpone to 2026. And so we're still working out those dates. And it's all good. It's going to happen. We just had to rearrange some things so that I could focus on my health. And so, listen, we just decided to keep this party going. All right. So each Wednesday, those of us who are able are going to be hopping on online. And we're just going to be chatting about different topics, right, that are related to women being wealthy and worthy and remembering that you're already wealthy and worthy, and things that you can do to help expand that and make that real for you in your own life. So, this week, our topic is about going from 9 to 5 to work optional and and ways that we can recover or save up to 5 hours this week alone. Okay. And so, what I want to start with, I think, is why I believe that your journey from 9 to 5 to work optional starts with your habits and not your hustle, right? So, uh, as we think about, for me and Jeannie, right, both, we are both entrepreneurs, right, who have fired our 9 to 5s and have launched into, full-time entrepreneurship, not without a plan. Okay. Now, I always tell my clients this, right? Do not just jump off the ledge into entrepreneurship, right? Like it may sound sexy to fire your 9 to 5, but I want you to know that it requires wisdom and it requires strategy and it requires guidance to be able to do it with wisdom, right? We want you to be wise. Okay. So you cannot focus on thriving when you are stuck in survival. And
Mhm.
a lot of times that 9 to 5 is what gives you that stability. It makes sure that the bills are paid. It makes sure that your food is on the table. It makes sure that all of those things that allow your life to be comfortable are steady and in place. And so there's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5. I just want to be very explicit about that, right? Before we jump in. But those are the decisions that we chose for ourselves and our own journeys and the things that align with what we desire for ourselves. And that may not be your dream, and that's totally okay. But if you do have questions about that, drop them in the chat because we're also happy to spend some time at the end answering your questions, right? About like, what does it look like, to fire your 9 to 5? Maybe what was the first step or whatever questions you have. Okay. Just drop them in the chat. We're happy, happy, happy to answer them. So, Jeannie, coming from your perspective, right, as a mental health expert, what would you say are some mental and maybe emotional blocks that keep women from breaking free from that overworking, 9 to 5, hustle and grind.
Absolutely. I think, historically speaking, you have to really take the time out to review yourself through five lenses, right? When it comes to your
Mm,
mental health,
okay.
review yourself through how you show up inside of your career and what your relationship is to your career. View yourself how you show up with self on the day to day. View yourself on how you see yourself in relationships, whether those be of the romantic persuasion, how you view yourself through community, through friendships, and how you view yourself through your family. I think it's really important to
Mm,
have those senses of self when it comes to your mental health because it will tell you what the barriers are. If through my relationship with family, what I learned was we lived consistently paycheck to paycheck. And that brought on high amounts of anxiety, which I watched my parents inside of, right?
mm,
These swirls of anxiety and panic when it came to bill time. I'm going to have a better understanding of myself and what I've created and what the dynamics are and how they exist there. And I need that knowledge. If I've been viewing
mm,
myself and see myself through the lens of the relationships that I've chosen, I understand that like every partner that I've ever had has been the type of partner who's been encouraging of me and supportive in me taking risk, or they've been the type to when I communicate any type of hesitancy or when I communicate any type of alarm or fear, they're quick to find the evidence that like I'm right and I need to stop and I need to stay where I am. When you
mm.
view yourself through those lenses and try to understand the dynamics, you get a better impression oftentimes of what you need mentally to get to the next steps and you see the barriers much more clearly. Like I know if I had parents who lived paycheck to paycheck, I'm clinging to that 9 to 5, right? Because that's what kept them, even though it brought all this anxiety, even though they were still stressed
Yeah.
about paying bills, it was what created the structure so that they could pay any bills at all. And it's all I know. So I'm going to have to recognize that as a barrier to potentially firing my 9 to 5 and getting into entrepreneurship, which requires oftentimes that we have a very, very thick skin and that we're willing to tolerate, right? Like the higher risk profile that comes in working as entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. Wow. Okay. Okay. So that y'all know, right? That it's even more than just the practical decision of deciding that you want to just be an entrepreneur, right? There are those mental and emotional barriers that could potentially exist and make it a little more difficult for you to reach that goal in a way that you would probably desire. And no shame in it, right? But just like she said, being aware and understanding what needs to change and how it needs to change. Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Same question to you, Dr. T.
Oh man, what do I think keeps you women stuck in the 9 to 5 hustle?
Mhm.
I think it's fear. I think it's fear. I think that it's if I don't show myself worthy
Mhm.
through these acts of service that I'm somehow not as valuable.
Mhm.
Almost like I have to justify me being here. I have to earn my spot, right? And I've
Mhm.
had clients say to me too, I've had to work twice as hard to be just as good, right? Like these stories, these narratives that we tell ourselves that we hear within community.
Mhm.
I think it's that fear of like, who am I and what am I worth if I don't operate at this high level, and if I don't outperform my peers. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and also I
So
think,
interesting.
yeah, and also I'll tell you what I see with my clients. A lot of what I see with my clients is those other relationships that you talked about
Uh-huh.
aren't going so well. And so work is the one thing that I can control. It's the one thing that or at least that I believe I can control.
Yeah.
It's the one place where I excel and I'm applauded. It's the one place, right, where people are affirming me. They may not be challenging me in real and meaningful ways. It's the one place where I can show up in with my representative and nobody knows.
Mhm.
But I'm shining, I'm bright, I'm dominating, I'm in control, and I don't feel like that in my personal life or maybe in my marriage or maybe with my children or, I don't feel that same level of steadiness and level of autonomy and sureness in those other spaces. And so work is like, okay, this is the one thing that I know that I do well, right? And so then it's
That's
this
yeah.
hyper focus on work, and work becomes the idol.
Mhm. Absolutely. I hear that. I love that. And this is what we see, right? This idea of productivity, of the way that we relate to the dynamic of work as being our source of validation and affirming of who we are and affirming of our worth. And that 9 to 5 is so good at doing that, right? Here are the exact hours that you put in, and here are the tangible dividends that match those exact hours. Here is your ability to measure yourself amongst competition, right? So you can see the other employees and what they're doing, and someone's measuring their productivity over yours. So you know just exactly where you stand and if you're doing things right or wrong. That feedback loop is there for you. That
Yep.
structure is precise and pristine, and you know exactly what's happening at all the time. And when you're an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, do you have that level of feedback? Do you get that level of validation that is so clear and concise for yourself that can keep you going? Not necessarily, no, right? It's
That's
all
so
me.
good.
It's all my dream.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
tough. That ambiguity that we live inside of sometimes, right? Because we're not comparing ourselves to others. When you're in full entrepreneurship, you're the one bringing it
Real
home.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all you. You're watching you and the previous version of you who started in this continue to evolve consistently. And there isn't that same kind of immediate feedback sometimes. And I think we talked about this last week, this idea of like sometimes you're putting in so much work and the
Mhm.
visual manifestation of that work in entrepreneurship takes a bit longer. It's not always like I put in one and then we get two. Sometimes it's like I put in
Yes.
one and then one more and then one more, and that doesn't make three. Like, you know? So it's
So
rough. It's a little
cool.
bit rough. A little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
I hear
No,
you. Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I think yeah, sometimes I think, and this is a topic we can cover in another week, but I do think that sometimes being an entrepreneur, you almost have to have this delusional amount of belief in yourself,
Yeah.
of like,
Hmm.
I got this. Do I have this? I got this. I think I got
I got this. Got this. Yeah.
But no, that's so good. That's so good. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see what else. I actually had a few of my we send it out to our email list, and I had a few folks that had a few um questions this week um about how to do it, how to reclaim time, right?
Yeah.
Um so okay, this is a good one. How do I start even thinking about saving hours without sacrificing my income or impact?
Okay. I think the start of it is recognizing when you are at your most creative or when you are at your most sort of active and um purpose driven place, and then figuring out where that exists. So I know some people who are really good, like this is just like tangible stuff, right? I know some people who are extremely good in the morning. So getting up early before work, fantastic for them. They love it. They get up at 4 in the morning and they go and they're loving everything about that 4 in the morning to whenever before they go to work or whatever time they need to start getting preparation for work.
Mhm.
I know some people who are not, that's never going to happen for them. Tangibly, that's never going to happen. I'm one of those people. I'm talking about me, just so you know. It's never going to happen. I am not creative at those hours.
Oh,
My creativity level,
man.
it peaks somewhere around like 7:30, maybe even 8 o'clock. And I
Yeah.
could be rocking with that for hours. I can rock with that till like midnight, maybe even
Yeah.
sometimes past that. But
Yeah.
you need to know first and foremost, when you're existing in your most creative space, when you're existing in that space where the ideas come to you, where things flow for you, where you feel most connected to yourself, where you feel
Mhm.
most kind of risque about like putting what you dream on paper so you can start to look at it and see it up
Mhm.
close. I think like that's the tangible start, is understanding like when I can even, when it's even like lovely for me to be inside of those hours that we would devote to like moving away from our 9 to 5. First and foremost, just understanding that. What do you think, Doc?
I love that. I love that. Man, okay, where to start without losing income or impact?
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's right, what you said. Like, I think it aligns. I guess I'll say this, it aligns with my experience, right? Like,
Yes.
when I first started thinking about how to scale back, I I had to first come to terms with what I was willing to sacrifice to make that dream a reality for myself, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, in my experience, and those of you who have followed my journey with Legacy League or even Mended Hope, like, like, I talk about this often. Like, I started with scaling back to 4-day work weeks,
Mhm. Love that. Mhm.
right? And when I did that, there were a few things that came up. It was like, okay, well, can I squeeze 40 hours into 4 days?
Mhm.
Right? Because I ain't want to miss my coins, right?
Yep.
Um, and that's a consideration. That's something that you could consider, right?
It's huge.
As a temporary sacrifice as you're wanting to build out your dream or do whatever it is that you want to do.
Mhm.
And to capture those extra hours for yourself, to
Yes.
build, whatever it is that you're interested in, even if it's something, even if it's not building a business, even if it's
Yep.
just a day to do something that you're passionate about, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
when I first started doing that, that is what I did on Fridays. I just did
Mhm.
things I loved. I slept in, I worked out, later in the morning. Like, I ate lunch at brunch, like, I just kind of took it easy,
Yeah.
and then when my son was born, I spent Fridays with him, and so it has looked different in different seasons for me.
Mhm.
But I think making that decision, I had to count the cost, right? And one of the costs, and what I ended up doing for myself, I decided I was not squeezing 40 hours into 4 days. I didn't
Mhm.
wanna work 10-hour days, so I just took a pay cut,
Mhm.
right? I just got paid for 32 hours. It is what it is, right? Like, I lost 8 hours of pay, but for me, it was a trade-off that was worth it, because having that, free time and open time to just do whatever it is that I wanted, invest in myself, is what allowed me to get clear about my dreams
Mhm.
and about what I wanted to pursue, And I think also what's important as you all think about, saving time or moving to work optional from a 9 to 5, is like, even taking the time to get clear about what you want
Yes.
is like biggest step. It's
Mhm.
the biggest step. Before you think about income or impact, think about what you want and actually get really, really clear about that thing. Right? Because if you don't, I say this all the time, right? Effort without aim just leads to exhaustion. So if you're constantly just trying to do something, right, but
Mhm.
you have no clear understanding of what the bullseye is and where you're aiming, you're just going to waste your time.
Mhm.
And we don't want that, right? We want you to be effective. We want you to use wisdom. We want you to be impactful as you think about these things and transitioning into these new ways of being, and interacting with work. And so Yeah, I would say, like, consider what the trade-offs what trade-offs you're willing to make as
Yeah.
you think about scaling back and taking more of your time back for yourself.
I love that, that clarity. And also, you describe so well the trajectory inside of the change and how flexible you were with yourself.
Mm,
Because, you know, they're asking, like, how do I save my coins and then start moving into this new space? Like, I can't afford to lose money. And you're like, well,
mhm,
the way that I did it was I started off with like, I could try to fit 40 hours into 4 days, and now I saw that didn't work for me. And I was willing then, knowing myself, to just take the pay cut. I could afford to do that.
yeah,
I have a totally different scenario, right? I was the same as these other people. I said, you know what? I'm not willing to take any pay cuts. I have a lot of moving parts in my life, and I've always been really high energy. That's just me. So I could add on those extra. I could
for
figure
a
out
bit,
when I was most
right,
creative in my
right,
life and where I could continue to be purposeful and productive. And I could figure out what hours worked outside of work. And I just added that stuff on.
yep,
There are people who are like that. And that's okay
mhm,
that you're high energy like that. That's okay that
yep,
you love those things. But as I grew and changed, right?
mm,
As I aged, as my life became something I needed to balance a bit more with relationship, with family needs and things like that, I started
mhm,
to see like, hey, listen, not sustainable anymore to be inside of
mm,
that 40-hour shift and things like that. Now I need to like figure out what's a day that's just mine. What works for
mm,
me? What's a day that's just mine for relaxing, or like the tedious administrative days that I utilize or whatever?
yep,
Like, what's going to work for me? And my Tuesdays became that. And you'll
mhm,
shift and you'll grow. That the point is,
yeah,
I love that, Dr. Tiana said, get clear for yourself on what it is you want. Also, get clear for yourself on who it is you are right now. What do you exist as right now in this version? What's the version of yourself you want to exist as? And where do the two converge? So, like the
mm,
qualities you already have between those two people, you recognize them and know them and can foster them. But then the qualities that like really don't match the version you want to be, you can really start to work on them and you really start to understand them, in the way that they're barriers. Because I think there are a lot of people who also aren't realistic about who they are, and they really struggle in this journey because, frankly, they're just lying to themselves as to what they can commit to this journey. And that doesn't help anybody. It helps no
yeah,
one. Like, you gotta be really, this. You have to be deeply and truly honest about who you are in this journey if you are going to shift into your next phase, into your next version.
ooh-wee. That lying to yourself is, baby,
It'll
that's
get you.
it.
It'll get you.
No, for real. So, okay, so on the note of s self-honesty, right? What role would you say that self-trust plays in setting those boundaries
Mm.
around our time and our energy as we think about, giving ourselves more margin throughout the week?
Oh my goodness. I would say if we scaled it, we put it on a Likert scale of like not important at all or like extremely important. I would say it's extremely important. You really, I mean, this journey looks, it is a confrontation. I find that there is a consistent
Mm,
confrontation that happens. And it's confrontation doesn't have to be negatively connotated,
right.
right? It's just
Mhm,
like, here's the reality of my situation, and here's where, I want to be. Like, this is my desired situation and outcome. And consistently not each day, I would say, I think sometimes things are greater. Like you have like moments, months sometimes, or experiences that are coming about that make that confrontation really huge, right? Like, who do you
okay.
say you are? You who you say you are? Do you
Mm,
want what you say you want? And it's this consistent confrontation. If we don't have that self honesty, right? If we're not evaluating ourselves proper, and that doesn't mean that that lacks love. That
yeah.
doesn't mean that that lacks compassion, right? That doesn't mean
Mhm,
that that lacks grace. Not
mm,
at all.
mhm,
Self honesty means I'm looking at myself true, right? And I'm accepting what I see. And if I think you taught me this so wonderfully when we were going through your master class, your master classes. We were moving into like getting even
Oh, the
more granular.
accountability. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
the
Mhm.
accountability master class as we're
Mhm.
moving into getting even more granular about our dreams, right? It's this idea of
Mhm.
like, I want to do this, and the third. Okay, well, week to week we're coming in and and we're seeing, okay, well, how much effort did you put into doing that? You know, how much work did you put into attaining what you say you wanted to attain? And there would be sometimes when I'm being like straight up confronted about, oh, I worked on that for like 2 days in the past week, and I told everyone, I told myself I was going to work on it for 4, and I knew that to get to the outcome I wanted, I needed to work on it for 4, but I didn't meet it. And it was
Mhm.
that confrontation, man. You will see who you are, because you will either see yourself lean in and
Mm.
give that 4 days a week next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, or you
Yeah.
will see that dream, you will see that dwindle, and you will continue to not put in the effort that you said you would. And then you have to be honest, and you have to say,
Mm.
you have to say to yourself, and then, you've obviously, I've got my community. So you
Yeah.
could say, Jay, that doesn't seem like something you're prioritizing. I don't know, that's actually where your heart is. So let's take it off the
Mhm.
list and put on what's truly in your heart. Let's put on what truly
Mhm.
it is that you want, because it doesn't make sense, Lovey, to be doing that. It just doesn't make sense to be putting that on the list if you're not prioritizing it. It is a waste of your time. And what you're doing in that is dwindling your confidence in yourself, because
Mm.
you're lying to yourself. Let's not. Let's not do that.
Mhm.
So I think it's extremely, extremely important on that scale. I that make a long story long.
Yeah. Long story long. That's hilarious. No, that's good stuff. I love that. I love that perspective too of like sometimes the self-trust is built in community, in the context of community, which is why, we're doing this and on its own, right? Like we want
Mhm.
people to know that whether you're out on your own as an entrepreneur or whether you are working a 9 to 5, you still need community because there are certain competencies that can be supercharged when you are in community. And that self trust is one of the major ones because I think sometimes I was actually thinking about this the other day because I thought, you know, I I was thinking about it in the context of self-love.
Mm, mhm.
And I was like, looking at some of my listen, this is a real truth moment, okay? I was
Okay.
looking at some of my photos from like 10, like maybe not 10 years ago, but maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, right? And I
Mhm.
was heavier, and everybody kept saying I had love weight, right?
Mhm.
And I literally was looking at it and I was like, I was super, super happy back then, right? Like I was just like living the dream. But I also had become just undisciplined in
Mhm.
my habits, right? And I thought, how easy is it for us to not demonstrate that we love ourselves
Mm.
and then not realize that we don't love ourselves the way we thought we did?
Ooh.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it
You know,
does.
like
But
I'm
say that
trying to say
again
it
for
like how it's coming in my mind, but you know what
yeah.
I'm trying to say? Like like I literally thought about it the other day. Like I was like, I, I wasn't demonstrating that I loved myself. And and in that like looking back at myself in that moment in time, it was like I just knew I loved myself. Like I was just overindulging. Right? I was like, life is a
Absolutely.
party. It's amazing. You know what I mean? And like
Awesome.
and like now I'm like, what the heck? Like
Yeah.
and we laugh about it or whatever, but it was just like, okay, like girl, like you gotta get back disciplined, like you gotta get back on it and do the things you know to do. And so
Absolutely. I think we distort all the time. I think you're describing a distortion, right?
Yeah.
We do it all the time. And I think we
Yeah.
allow other people to do it for us as well. Like I just described, when you're inside of the dynamic inside of a relationship with someone who cares about you, and you are verbalizing for them all of your fears. You're putting them right on the table. And they think what it means to love you is to align with you inside those moments. You're right about that. And I have seen you be like that. And I have, instead of like, actually, sometimes when you love someone, what it is and what's important to do is to help them to shift into finding what they need to move forward, not to
Mm. Right.
fuel for them the
Mhm.
barriers that they see for themselves.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's a difficult thing. Like in those moments, like you said, I thought, oh, I'm loving myself. I'm hanging out. I'm having fun. I'm like, maybe my background is that like I was always taking things very seriously. And some
Yep.
of my discipline came from a very warped sense of like, I need to produce to be worthy. And so you having fun and relaxing was a great thing at those times, but you didn't realize you were shifting into a new space, right? Into overindulgence,
Yep.
right? Into
Yep.
this
Yep.
this like, oh, okay, now we're totally and completely undisciplined, and we're throwing our structure out the window. We went
Yep.
to the other extreme now, so we need to come
Yep.
back to that
Yep.
healthy space where we can create and be well for ourselves inside of like true love, inside of true acceptance of who we are. And I
Yep.
think sometimes it takes both explorations on both ends of the spectrum to kind
Mm.
of get it right. But I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people will resonate with that very real experience of self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad listen, I'm glad the pendulum swung back, okay, honey? But
Ma'am,
I
listen,
said
you
and
looking you
and
looking good.
and listen, and it was funny because I literally told my husband, I said, "I was fat and nobody told me," and he was like and he started laughing. He was like, "Well, how are they gonna say it, Tiana? Like, be for real," like yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
like you said, like I listen, you just give yourself grace, you learn and you adapt and you grow and you evolve and you just keep trying to show up better
absolutely.
and
And
just
you
love yourself.
recognize, community loves you. And sometimes love is like, I never saw you fat. I saw you thick. We live in a community where I saw
Well,
you
I
looking
definitely was thick. Yes.
oh,
Yes.
and looking
Yes.
good. But P.S. I'm like, let y'all can go back to the pics. You will think nothing of what and not agree with what she's saying.
Right, right,
But
right.
we know how you wanted to be seen. And now that
Yeah.
we know what
Yeah.
you want and how you want to be, I think that's so much easier too to understand as well. Because I
Mm,
think your husband has always been aligned with you as to what you want and how you want it to look. And
absolutely.
some of us, do we have the idea? I don't know. I know now for sure.
Oh, wow, that's so
Mm,
good. That's so good. Okay, okay.
mm.
All right. Well, we're wrapping up the time. All right. Um, let's see. Let's see if we have one final thought.
That's
What is one simple habit that you would suggest our ladies do to help them reclaim a couple hours a week?
absolutely. I think, oh no, I know
Okay.
setting boundaries
Mm,
around that specific time when you are at your most creative is that one thing that you can do.
okay.
I know a lot of people who, through motherhood, through relationship,
Hmm.
through having a demanding career, whatever it is, through or even through their own, like we said, like this idea of like, I have not built the trust up with myself to protect myself in ways that I'm supposed to, even
Yeah.
through all of those devices. They say, I'm going to, these 2 hours or so, or this 1 hour is going to be all for my meditation, for taking a walk, for working out, for whatever. And they just don't protect it.
Mm,
You gotta set boundaries. You can't be having your child,
mhm.
sneaking in. Like make sure they're with a trusted adult, or they have the supervision they need, or whatever else. Like if you say you're
Yeah,
going to do it, you've actually got to do it, and then you've actually got to set the boundaries to protect it. I think that's pivotal.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna leave y'all with one that's actually mine that I actually did, right? Mine was listen, get your butt up earlier. Okay. Now, I'm with Jeannie. I am not an early morning person, but after I had my son, that postpartum is no joke.
Mm,
And I knew that I wanted to feel more like myself, and I knew that for me, working out is what did that for me. And I was off for 9 months after I had my son, so for I would say probably a good 3 or 4 months maybe, I got up at 5 AM. And my husband, I'll never forget one of the days we had a gym in our building, but then we had like workout stuff in our house too, in our condo. And I was on the elliptical in his office, and he came in and he said, "You're at 5 AM, Tiana? Like you're not a 5 AM, right?" And I said, "Well, for right now I am." Right. And for that period of time,
mhm,
I just knew like I needed to commit to myself for this time, because if I can feel better in my body, then the whole rest of my day with my baby will be better, you know? And so I just had to make that sacrifice of like going to bed earlier,
mhm,
and actually getting up at 5 AM and getting that workout in before, my baby woke up for his first cry, So like
mhm.
sometimes it does require temporary sacrifice, right, to get to that goal, but you just have to be very clear about, like we've talked about, right? Like, what do you want? And what are you willing to give up to get it?
Love that.
So that's what we got for y'all this week, okay? So, as you think about this transition, reclaiming more of your time, right? Take some of those tips, take some of those strategies,
Mm,
start to practice, start to rebuild that self trust, and that self love, right? Like, love yourself, okay? And in the meantime, listen, you got other questions, drop them, drop them, drop them, drop them. We're happy to answer. And we will be back next week, same place, same time. All right.
See you
So we
then.
hope y'all have an amazing rest of the week, and we'll check in again soon.
Bye now.